We will now start with session 1.2. So over to you again, Casey.
Okay, good afternoon. Session 1.2 is about mobilizing PISA evidence in national and subnational level research. This session explores how PISA evidence is utilized in research at both national and subnational level to look at educational issues of relevance for a particular educational context. Jennifer Dietrich from the Technical University of Munich will present some selected examples of how the PISA National Center of Germany has accompanied national PISA research projects and how these projects' potentials inform educational policy and practice. Please, Jennifer, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. As introduced, my name is Dr. Jennifer Dietrich. I'm a National Project Manager and also Deputy Lead for the National Center. Can you see the slides? I can't. Okay. Thanks. As said, I want to introduce you some accompanying projects. So first, after some introduction, I'm gonna tell you about both ends of the data set before some concluding remarks. Doesn't the okay. So we all commonly refer to PISA as a tanker because it's quite slow and sturdy, but at the same time, this comes with at the same time, it means that PISA is reliable. So one of the reliable key features of PISA, which we're all very familiar with, are the league tables. For this is as an example, the mathematical competence in PISA 2022. Germany scored not significantly above the OECD average, but to learn more about it, we might need some context. Context in this case means the student questionnaires or the context questionnaires or doing some subgroup analyses or seeing the trend for a specific group. I go into them into detail. For the context questionnaire, we can maybe learn that what the students and teachers perceive were the lessons like. So we get more information how we came to this result in the league table. And by the way, the teacher questionnaire is a nice international option, so something for a first add-on. Then another form of context, doing some analysis for relevant subgroups. In this case, I show you the trend for academic and non-academic schools. In the upper line, you always see the 2022 share of high and low performing, and then the lower line, it's always the non-academics, the 2018, and it's from academic and non-academic. And with this context, we can already learn that the downward trend that we experienced in Germany was for both types of schools. Speaking of trend, it's always interesting to also have a look at the former past, or go for even further past, and also to see it in the context of the other domains. But so what we learned till here, with context, the picture gets sharper than we have seen in when we just have a look at the league table. But it can only get but the PISA data set can only answer so much, namely what those parts that made it through the tanker or made it on the tanker and were of international interest. Sometimes we might also have questions that exceed these these interests of questions of international interest or that made their way in the full data set. And for that, in Germany, we are quite a tradition of expanding the basic data set, expanding it in 2 dimensions. The first dimension is the width, so including more constructs, asking more questions, doing more tests, and also in length by including more persons, having an oversample in students, teachers, or principals. This is a short and incomprehensive overview of the additional accompanying research that we've done with a sample or with a data set. For example, in terms of the length, we had subnational reporting up to PISA 2006, which meant an oversample there. For the width, and an example that was longer running was we had a national teacher questionnaire up until the point that it was an international option. And for the gray means that this was before the PISA National Center moved to Munich. So I won't get into detail into those. And for the blue box, I will only touch on some of the studies in the interest of time, but I'm happy to talk about them, or you can find more information in the slides, which are shared online, will be shared online. For one of the first oversamples that we did was an oversample of the SEN schools. Just a short results is that this was an experimental rotation to check which form of testing suited SEN students the most, but this is by far was far less sophisticated than the RDI accessibility study that Mario talked about this morning. So I won't go into detail with that one. Another more interesting oversample was in 2018. We did a mode effect study, so comparing computer-based and paper-based testing. To this end, we had an oversample in the school, or in students, so that some students could actually start with a PBA without interfering with the league table result, without the results to be reported in the league tables. From that, we learned that PBA and CBA do measure the same construct, but differ in the item difficulty. And a more recent study, add-on study that we had in oversample, so in the length direction, is a classroom observation study where we, in 2022, the members of the national team we went to the classroom where students who took PISA were taught and did some observation of the math and science lessons, and also asked teachers to send in their tasks they gave during lessons and during the school year. And the results are still pending, the full results, but we already learned from that study that the classroom tasks rarely included any motivational components. And this is one of the first this is one practical gain that for advice we got from practice, will get at least. We expect this study to yield some guidance on motivational support of classroom materials. So I now come to the width. So this is the cheaper version of accompanying studies, adding more constructs. I'm going to, in the interest of time, skip another PBA mode effect study and come straight to the fillet of the add-on studies that were done in Germany. This is a longitudinal study we did after PISA 2012 and 2013. Students were assessed once again, so 1 year later, first 9th grade, later second year in the 10th grade. And they were assessed not only with PISA test, but also with the national test. And the national one is curriculum-based. So we got a comparison of how they performed in the literacy and in the curriculum-based test. And what we learned from this study is that from 9th to 10th grade, we saw not too much increase in the competency gains on the literacy base, but some gains on the curriculum-based test. And we saw that grade repetition did not yield higher competency or interest or motivation. And also that the main predictor for competency in 2013 was the competency in 2012, less so the social background of the students. I'm also gonna skip the two other studies and come straight to the outlook. So as in the short snapshots you've seen, we have a tradition of being a complicated study country for the contractors, and also with all the additional studies, they were either requested by policy or by science, and I would be curious to hear more about what you are doing in your countries. But before that, let me just shortly tell you what we're doing in 25. First, where we are going to do an oversample for English teachers. So we'll have a linkage between the FLA students and their teachers. Then we'll have another add-on study where we do let the FLA students write. So the English in PISA it's included, writing is not included. We'll do that both with an AI and with without an AI tools. So from that study for the educational practice, we expect to get in the long run some guidance on how to use AI in English writing or English writing lessons. And the study that's the dearest to my heart, we do the innovative domains up to now have only been presented once or only been tested once. And I was interested in how they innovative domains compare amongst themselves, so horizontally, and also how do they compare over time, so vertically. Because due to budget and other reasons, we will do this for 2025. We will do this only for PISA 2003 problem solving and PISA 2022 creative thinking, so the earliest and the latest innovative domain, but we'll assess them additionally in Germany. And we expect some guidance on the differential importance of the 21st century competencies from that study. So I hope I could raise the motivation to first seek the opportunity of the big tanker and make use of the full data set and the international options, but also maybe to use some dinghy. This is actually a Pixabay stock photo that came up when I looked for dinghy. So to have accompanying research with that. So I'm very grateful for this conference and looking forward to hear more of the accompanying research that is done in other countries.
The next presentation in session 1.2 will be online from Mariam Savisberg as well as Francesca Potter from the University of Applied Sciences and Arts in the southern Switzerland. The title of their presentation is Collaboration Between Researchers and Policymakers in the PISA Survey, the Case of the Small Context in the Canton Casino in Switzerland. Let's take a look at the video there.
Good afternoon. Do you hear me?
Yes.
And do you see the slide?
Yes. No problem.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Miriam, and today I present also for my colleague Francesca Crotta. And it's a pleasure to be able to present our experience at this conference. The purpose of our contribution today is to illustrate the collaboration between researchers and policymakers in one part of Switzerland, the canton of Ticino, in PISA data reporting. We do this by highlighting how these two groups mobilize the results of PISA. Switzerland is a federal state composed of 26 cantons, so PISA is jointly implemented and funded by the federal government and the cantons. Operationally, the University of Bern coordinates the work among one institution responsible for sampling located in Zurich, and 3 regional coordination centers, each as the reference of one of Switzerland's main language areas: orange for German, purple for French, and green for Italian. The Italian-speaking region where we work includes part of the Grison canton and the entire Ticino canton. Our center is in Locarno, a city in the canton Ticino. Switzerland population is almost 9 million people, with about 90,000 15-year-olds. The Ticino canton has a population of about 360,000 people, with around 3,000 15-year-old students. So it is a small context. Since PISA 2015, the Canton of Ticino has funded an oversampling of 15-year-old students, corresponding to around 1,200 tested students. This oversampling allows for drawing conclusions about the entire population of this small context and enables both national and international comparisons with Ticino population. In Ticino, researchers from Swiss-Italian Coordination Center collaborate with local educational policymakers already during the survey's implementation phase, and also collaborate also during the PISA data reporting phase. Today, we will focus on the collaboration in 3 activities related to PISA data reporting phase: the content choice of report, the writing a revision about the report, and the use of published data. Our approach to analyze the collaboration focused on comparing researchers and policymakers' perspective on PISA data reporting activities. Therefore, we interviewed our main partners, and specifically Emanuele Berger, Director of the School Division and Coordinator of the Department of Education, and Serena Ragazzi, Deputy Director of the School Division, and she is also the reference person of PISA for the Canton of Ticino. So the first step was to clarify our own perspective as researchers, describing each reporting activity. And for each activity, we identified the points of interaction with policymakers, the positive and negative aspects, and the expected improvements from our side. Then, second step, based on this, we built an outline for the interview. And third, we do the interview, and during the interview, we asked policymakers to describe each reporting activity, evaluating the good and the critical points, and saying what we can improve. In the following slides, we show just some points that have been discussed about the 3 activities. So, regarding the choice of what to report, we researchers have the freedom to make the initial proposal. We typically draft a report plan and discuss it with policymakers, creating a point of convergence based on our initiative as researchers. This allows us to focus on what we believe is important in the PISA data while receiving support and validation from the Commissioner. In developing our proposal, we build on previous year's experience, considering elements to retain or not. The actual themes from national report and OECD international report, and what the PISA data concretely offer. However, a key challenge is ensuring our proposal align with policymakers' needs and priority. In the interview, policymakers expressed interest in the PISA results. The relevant themes guiding their department are equity, inclusion, and excellence. These themes are also those detected by the PISA survey. However, they also admitted they are not always sure of their exact needs. And one possible solution proposed during the interview is organizing a focus group with department staff to clarify their question and their needs. In the writing phase, we researchers prepare a near-final draft and policymakers review it with comments and revision directly within the text. This feedback serves as the main point of interaction in this activity. Their feedback is crucial for refining the report, avoiding misunderstanding, but also at the same time maintaining our autonomy over the content. Policymakers emphasized that the draft should already meet a quality standard, allowing them to focus on sensitive policy or media aspects. We also discussed that PISA reports are often descriptive and can feel boring, and policymakers appreciate features like summary boxes and a table in the conclusion synthesizing all the results in the last report. And they also suggested exploring storytelling or narrative approaches, which means having questions about the education system and trying to answer them through different research data, not necessarily just from PISA. This method is sometimes used by policymakers in their presentation when they want to promote their vision. And during the interview, the question was raised whether researchers could also use this method. And about use of published data, researchers aim to maximize the value of the collected data by using various channels and targeting different audiences. For instance, we conducted in-depth analysis, including a study published in a regional journal on educational and vocational aspiration. We also merged PISA data with a cantonal data set to link academic profiles of students at the end of compulsory schooling in Ticino. Additionally, the data were used to develop educational indicators such as educational gaps, school selectivity, competencies and school grade, and well-being. We presented the result to local researchers and educators. And we also shared findings with the general public through an infographic, which was also sent to schools participating in PISA 2025. Policymakers use PISA data for practical purposes, such as shaping policy projects and addressing media or parliamentary inquiries. For example, PISA data supported a report of Department of Education on taking away the different courses with different levels in middle school classroom. This is a topic on which the department is working hard. They use a graphic in which we can see the overlaps in scores between advanced and basic courses. And a second example involves a parliamentary question concerned by the preparedness of new high school students. PISA data is cited here to show that 15-year-old students in the canton perform well compared to international results. Both the example based on data published in the cantonal report. And to illustrate how researchers and policymakers can find common ground, we will show you a recent example. Researchers prepared a report on students not reaching level 2 in PISA reading. It's PISA 2018. This study was commissioned by a local association. The association proposed to organize an event to present the finding, which was declined in a roundtable with the director of the Department of Education and other stakeholders. Following the roundtable, policymakers decided to form a working group to address and promote efforts on the topic of reading difficulty. So, in the conclusion, the direct exchange during the interview with policymakers has been a really good opportunity to increase awareness and effectiveness among all stakeholders. It was also an occasion to understand better how policymakers use PISA data. In fact, we were not aware of everything they do with the PISA data. The interview allowed us to exchange some ideas on how to improve some aspects. And by analyzing the three activities that we have presented, we can detect the following conditions for good collaboration in our context. Researchers need to engage policymakers actively. For example, if policymakers are uncertain of their needs on content, researchers should bring them closer to relevant survey topic, considering also the political vision. And in the phase about writing the report, communication should be tailored to maintain this interest also through the format chosen. And to engage policymakers when data are published, creating opportunities for interaction among multiple stakeholders has been successful in our experience. For example, the roundtable. Policymakers, for their part, need an open attitude toward research and data, even when results aren't as expected. Signs of openness include a willingness to exchange ideas, provide feedback, consider suggestions, and use the data provided. This is our current experience within a small context, and which we know also personally and for several years the policymakers. So we finish our presentation with two questions. Are there any other important conditions for having successful collaboration? And do these conditions apply to all the context? And I thank you.
Okay, in this session 1.2, we have heard two presentations, one from Germany and another one from Switzerland. Now, for the Q&A 10 minutes session, I would like to open the floor for questions in the room and online. Any person would like to ask the presenters questions? Please raise your hand. Okay. Please.
Thank you. Ides Nikes again from Leuven University. Thank you very much for the presentations. I have a question to Miriam Salvisberg about the kind of policymakers that you work with. I think there's a difference between people from the national administration who are, say, the executing body, whereas you, on the other hand, you have members of parliament and say the minister, etc. I asked the question because that makes difference. In our say experience, the collaboration with the administration, the Ministry of Education, goes relatively smoothly. But when talking about policymakers, there's a lot of sensitivity, of course. On the one hand, the Minister of Education is very sensitive about, say, potential bad messages or evaluations, negative evaluations of existing policies, and about potential leaks of the results to the outside world, etc. So the question is, how do you manage this sensitivity and how do you collaborate with different categories of policymakers? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I have to say that we have also the national level, so we collaborate also at the national level. But at the cantonal level, yes, the collaboration is the Emanuele Berger. It's the responsible of education, and he has the direct relation with the minister. So we talk directly with Emanuele Berger, but he has also a relationship directly. So I think in that the collaboration that we mentioned in the presentation, these different steps can, how I can say, bring and take care this sensitive of all the different policymakers. At the final step, for example, the report, the Minister of Education of Canton Ticino, they also read the final report, for example. I don't know if I have answered the question, but yes, I think that the different steps of this collaboration can take care the different sensitive about the policy.
Okay, thank you. Any question asked online? Yeah.
Yes, there is a question to Jennifer. So the question is, one of the findings from the math classroom observation were that there was little evidence of motivational components being used. Could you say a little more about what these motivational components are and what would you like to have seen? Thank you.
Yes, this is a study that was is mainly led by a former member of the National Center, and then so it's not personally my study, but all of the tasks that were given to students were handed in by the teachers, and there was a quite complex coding system that was performed on those, and the main goal of this was to see whether the multidimensional educational goals are, in which way they are present in the tasks as well as in the lessons. So this was just a short finding. Yeah, I can only refer to the most information is in the paper that is cited there. I think that.
Since no more questions, okay, one, okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Miguel Ángel Álvarez from the European Commission, and I would have a question for Jennifer. It's around this extension in the foreign language assessment and on the writing and on the use of AI. And I would like if you could give us some more information about how do you plan to assess it, in particular, how you are going to use or make use of the AI tools in the assessment. Thank you.
Yes, I said this will be an add-on study, so students will be. This is a collaboration. So I'm working for the ZIP that has several departments, and it is a collaboration of all the departments from Munich, Frankfurt, and Kiel, led in Kiel. It will be FLA students will have a second test day in Germany in 2025. They will, after the regular PISA testing with listening, speaking, and reading, they will get a writing tool on the first day and also on the second day, and one day they will get to do this writing task with an AI tool, and the second day without, and the AI tool will be actually a form of ChatGPT, and we somehow figured out a version to to account for the data privacy with the prompts. So the issue with the prompts being adhering to data privacy. I don't know whether this answers them. And in any case, we can also talk in the break.
Okay, please.
Thank you, Martin Henry. I'm on the PISA Governing Board representing the Trade Union Advisory Committee, which is the teacher unions. I really appreciated the presentation, the angle on teachers in the first presentation, and I'm actually interested in how PISA data is being used to help develop professional learning and development that supports teachers to cover the gaps that are identified in the way that the research comes across. I'm not sure if you'll have picked this up, but perhaps.
The project that I presented, the classroom observation project, that is actually KECO 2 and the KECO 1 yielded a workshop where we, or the team, gave instructions or guidance on teachers how to make their tasks more engaging. But this was up to now, was a one-timer, but this workshop would be available to be taught several times. But this is more on a small scale level at the moment. This is not something that is yet. This is something yet to be included in national policy making or on the broader term.
Okay. Any person would like to ask the last question? Okay. If not, then I must thank the two presenters for the excellent presentations. I would like to declare the session 1.2 closed, and then immediately we will start the session 1.3. Yeah.